Hi, everybody. Welcome back to a 4Community inductive study. 4Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and you can connect with God. I'm really hoping you're going to connect with God as well. I'm looking forward to this inductive study. I'm looking at Luke chapter 2, verse 52, just one verse for this inductive study because this coming Sunday is Father's Day. That's why I'm doing this. And one of the formative passages in the Bible for me as a teenager, as a young adult, and in my journey toward becoming a dad and just growing as a guy, young guy into a man, this is very formative for me. And so I wanted to look at this in a fresh way and do an inductive study on this so I could hear it freshly and do a Bible talk on it for this coming Sunday and prep for Father's Day. So I hope that you're going to get different answers than I do from the text. You can see on the left side of my screen, I've got Evernote open up. On the right side of my screen, I've got the Olive Tree app opened up. And the inductive study, observation, what did I hear? Purely personal, what jumps out to me, what jumps out to you at the text. What does it mean? Interpretation, this is what I feel it means. This is what you feel it means. Application, what do I need to do? Now that I know what it means, it's either going to change me according to the ABCs, affective in my emotions, behavioral, what do I do? And cognitively, I'm going to think differently. So I'm going to feel differently, behave differently, or think differently. And that's really the application part of this. And I really hope you're going to come up with different answers than I do. So I'm going to run through this text through the inductive study method. And then after the jump, I'll let you know what I came up with, and hopefully you come up with different answers than me so that we have something awesome to talk about when we get to connect. I have done the inductive study on this text, and wow, so this text is has always been rolling around with me like my whole life since I've been a teenager. But it's amazing that when I do inductive study, even on a verse that I know so well, on a passage I know so well, it's amazing that it just comes to life for me in a brand new way, and I love it. So here's what I came up with. Now, what did I hear? This wasn't surprising because I hear the same thing from this verse all the time. I always see that Jesus grew, which is a priority to me, a priority to all of us, I would think, as we all want to grow and get better and not get worse. I mean, the older we get, we could grow worse, or we can keep on growing better. And so Jesus grew. I love that. And then in 4 areas. Jesus grew in 4 areas. He grew in wisdom, in stature, in favor with God, and favor with people. So those are 4 areas that this verse is saying that Jesus grew in. And so that, unsurprisingly, to me anyways, that jumps out at me still. That this is what is Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, favor with God, and people. If you spend any time at Circle Square Ranch, or if you're familiar with Circle Square Ranch, you might recognize this as the balanced living thing that Circle Square Ranch did. That they were trying to shape kids and teens and set them up for a good future. And it totally worked on me, and this stuck with me ever since a teenager. So this was the primary message of Circle Square Ranch, and it's worked for me ever since then. So I'm thankful for the lessons that I learned. Okay, so what does it mean? This is kind of fresh for me. Like I've looked at this often, but it hits me in a fresh new way today. So first of all, growing in wisdom part. As I look at Jesus, it would seem to me that Jesus applied himself to education. I have no idea if he was a straight A student, but it seems to me that he was noted as growing in wisdom, and he took his education seriously. So if Luke is writing here that he grew in wisdom, that he was noted as somebody who grew in wisdom, then my assumption is that he was the kind of guy that applied himself to his education. He didn't go skinny on his commitment. He applied himself to his education, and I think that's important. He grew in understanding how life just works, right? Because growing in wisdom isn't only about education. There's also some street smarts in wisdom as well. There's a lot of life that doesn't get taught in the formal education setting. And also there are things that we learn from a formal education setting that we need to apply carefully and at different times in the real world. Like sometimes our education can hinder us from moving forward in a real life setting, and other times we need to be using education in real life settings. So street smarts is what Jesus also learned. Emotional intelligence is at least as important as IQ. And in some scenarios, particularly in some jobs, EQ is much more important than IQ, much more important than IQ. So Jesus applied himself to his education. He went through life as a learner. So I think what this part of the verse is saying is this: Jesus was both book smart and street smart, and I think that that's a new thing I just got out of the text, that he's both book smart and street smart. It's amazing that I see this verse much differently as a dad than when I was younger and seeing this. Okay, this is just about me now and nobody else. But now that I'm a dad, I look at this little pastor Jesus a little bit differently. Jesus was both book smart and street smart. Now, second of all, growing in stature. I'm thinking that this is a reference to his body. Like, what else could this possibly refer to? He grew naturally, as people do, but I think that it also reflects that he wasn't a couch potato, because the whole part of this verse isn't just he was natural about this. Like, we don't see that he ate. Like, that's a passive thing. We don't see that he drank water. And Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, and he drank and he ate. It's not passive, it's active. So there's some activity involved in this growing in stature thing. It's not a passive thing. So I'm thinking that he was active enough to keep his body healthy. I mean, I don't see anywhere in the Bible where we see a comment that Jesus looked buff, like he was working out all the time. He was hitting the gym, hitting the weights, and he's huge hulking biceps. I don't see that anywhere in the Gospels. But I do see that he was able to hold himself in hostile crowds, and he wasn't easily pushed over, right? So he had some grounding, he had some strength to him. He was able to take a hit, it looks like. I mean, he took a hit all the way to the cross, and he had such grit and resilience, and that was in part, of course, because he had a healthy body as well. So Jesus took care of his body, I think, is what I'm seeing here. We just get one body, and even though he knew that his was going to end up on the cross, he still took care of it. Growing in favor with God. This is a reference to his spiritual life, I would say. Now, this is something that hit me particularly new this time, because I look at spirituality newly, I guess. I've been growing in my definition of what true spirituality really is. He somehow grew in his relationship with the Father. Talk about the Trinity is always mind-boggling to me, okay? So I have no idea what this really means. I mean, here's why I say that. Jesus is God, and Jesus is also a man. And there is a relationship happening within the Godhead, and yet God is also just one. The Trinity just it just boggles my mind. Anyways, but we see, though, that Jesus was in relationship with God. I do take away from this, though, that connecting with God is important to Jesus. And since that connection with God is written alongside his connection with people, that he's growing in favor with both God and people, then here we're seeing somewhat of a truer definition of spirituality, maybe truer than what we think spirituality might be. True spirituality is relational. True spirituality isn't defined as how often you go to church, how many programs you're in, how complicated your church structures are, the numerics. That's not true spirituality. I'm not saying none of that's important. Going to church, staying connected to a group of people, looking at how your kingdom growth is doing, it's all important. But true spirituality is relational. When the rubber meets the road, what matters is a relationship with God, and us moving closer and closer to something that's very big, huge, much bigger than us, who's also personal and inviting us to draw closer to him, God. The Son grew in his relationship with the Father while he was learning what it meant to be a man. Again, pushing that too far makes my brain hurt a little bit, because we're talking about the Trinity. Okay, so for Jesus, true spirituality was a relationship with God, and he chose to make it a priority for him. He probably scheduled it into his routine, stayed connected with the other peeps who were following God. And as we've seen in our studies through Mark right now, he was intentionally inviting others to join that relationship with God alongside him as well. Number 4, growing in favor with people. Jesus had a healthy social life. Yeah, I think that's very important for us to highlight here, particularly since some of us are still on lockdown and afraid of. Some people are afraid of leaving their houses. Other people are still being very cautious. Families, extended families, are still not hugging each other or visiting each other. Some people are still taking this seriously. I mean, other people don't take the pandemic seriously, but a lot of people are. And yet we still need to be conscious of the fact that we are social beings. We are not meant to live alone. We are not meant to live in isolation. We generally fare poorly in isolation. Regardless of whether you're socially gregarious or not, regardless of where you score on the social boldness scale, you and I are still created to be in relationship with each other and also with God. God first and then each other. So for Jesus to grow in favor with people, it seems to be broader than just one or a few subgroups. It seems to me that he understood his social context and was able to adapt within it and then thrive in it as he navigated the variety of people, types of people and personalities that were around him. Okay, that being said, we also see that he didn't get along with everyone. His own brothers shows us some animosity towards him, pushing him a little bit, not really believing in him at one point. It wasn't until after Jesus' resurrection, I think, that we see his, I say brothers and really his half-brothers, right? Like the children of Mary and Joseph union. That's who I'm talking about. Jesus didn't get along with it. We even see the Pharisees. The Pharisees want to kill him. Anyone attached, most people attached to the temple cult, like the Pharisees, religious law teachers, they all wanted to kill him. So we see that some people didn't get along with Jesus. But as it was on Jesus' shoulders, as it was within Jesus' control and power to do, for his part, he loved God first, and then he loved others second. And it's others' responsibility for how they received him, whether they did receive him or they didn't. FYI, you're not responsible for others' lack of receptivity toward you. I mean, as long as you're not being a goof. I mean, if you're being a goof, if you're not adapting well to your social context, and you're just kind of out there and doing your own thing and not really caring about anybody else around you, and who cares what people think of me, okay, well, that's on you. But if you are doing your best to try to work within the social context that you find, and you're doing your best to honor the people around you, and love God first, love others second, in generally a normal scenario in life, it's not on you whether or not people receive you or they don't, or if they dislike you. That's not on you. Everybody's responsible to make their own choices. So don't feel too badly if you're doing what you can to love God first, love others second. People just don't like it. Don't worry about that. Personality. I took personality theory, and I learned that yes, we are fearfully and wonderfully made, but we're also very, very complicated. And who knows why we do the things that we do. Personality is so complicated that just let it go. Just embrace the people that really want to embrace you, and do your best to love everybody. And if people don't like it, just let them go. There's a ton of people in the world. Don't stop loving them. Don't start hating on them. Just don't take it too personally. Personality theory is very, very complicated. This is a healthy trajectory, regardless of your age, regardless of your gender. This is what a healthy trajectory looks like. I know my focus for Sunday, this coming Sunday, is Father's Day, and I'm going to use this passage to put a Father's Day slant on it somehow. But this is something that we can all take note of. If we focus on our education, we will set ourselves up for a future of greater potential than if we simply go skinny in our efforts on education. If we don't apply ourselves to our education, we're failing our future selves. We're setting ourselves up in the future with a lack of options, a lack of resources. That's not a life of benefit, not a life of, wow, look at this is awesome. Look at all the opportunities that I have. Look at all the open doors that I have. If you focus on your education, regardless of how old you are, like I'm 47, I'm still focusing on my education because I've still got a lot of years left of me. And there's still some places I want to go and some things that I want to do. And so if you focus on your education, you're simply going to be opening up better doors for you and giving yourself more opportunities. Now, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that a higher education is going to be what sets you up for a great future. But generally speaking, life seems to go well or better for those that are educated. So focus on your education. If we focus on our physical health, we will set ourselves up for a better present and more hopeful future. Again, there's no guarantee. If we take care of our bodies, then our bodies will take care of us. I used to do P90X, Tony Horton, P90X, and he used to say that you take care of your body will take care of you. And I that phrase of his just stuck with me, and I really like that. And it's so true. The sins that we commit, and I use the word sins loosely, of course, but the sins that we commit against our bodies by not eating properly, not exercising, not seeking help when we need it, leaning into addictions, doing things that intentionally will hurt ourselves. We pay for all of that as we age. Caring for our bodies is about caring for our future. Number 3, if we focus on our relationship with God, we are setting ourselves up for a better future also. Now, prioritizing our commitment to following God, it keeps us out of harm's way. It's one of the things that I mean. And it also points us toward what's most fulfilling for us as individuals. So if we totally just put a self-centered perspective onto this text, why would I want to prioritize my relationship with God? So from a self-centered perspective, I would say that it keeps us out of trouble because God, in the Bible, we read about the stuff to stay away from and the stuff that's going to cause us grief later on, okay? And then it also points us toward where we're going to find the most amount of fulfillment in life as well. So just taking God at his word and doing our best to try to figure out what the Bible's saying and going in that direction sets us up, generally speaking, for a better future. And, just being in relationship with God is a reward in itself. Like you're being a friend of God, and that comes with some benefits. It also comes with a lot of sacrifice as well. There's no guarantees. But generally speaking, if you are intentional about connecting with Jesus and trying to figure out what a friendship with him looks like, your life will be much more fulfilling as you age. And it's hard for me to say you'll have a better life because that's not always entirely true. The lives of Christians aren't always better because we don't choose to follow God for our sake only. We choose to follow God for God's sake, right? We choose to follow God because he's God and he's the boss, and then in humility we choose to follow Jesus. However, there's also personal benefit in following God. By being a friend of God, that does come with benefits. It does come with perks. And a lot of those perks, of course, are eternal. And there's a lot of perks right here, right now. It's not easy. It's not lucrative. There's pain. There's sacrifice. How am I doing at selling this? But anything that's worth anything at all usually involves pain and sacrifice. You setting yourself up for a good future involves pain and sacrifice. That's a worthy pain and sacrifice. So is your spirituality. Okay, and finally, if we focus on our place within the social framework around us, we'll have a more hopeful future. Now, again, there's no guarantees, but generally speaking, people who understand their context and people who find their place within it, rather than being that bad neighbor that no one wants to live beside, or being that guy that mouths off to everybody, or being that guy, that person that always gets themselves into trouble, that hates the police, that robs, that cheats, you name it. If you stay on the up and up and treat the people around you with respect and with care, and even some aspect of love for them, you're going to set yourself up for a more enjoyable future. At the very least, a future outside of prison. You know what I'm saying? Find your place within your social context, and that's gonna do you well. I don't mean be a conformist. I don't mean give up your uniqueness or your personality, but you can be you within the presence of other people. Now, what do I need to do? Okay, so I've just taken a personal perspectives. These are my personal notes about what I need to do, and you've got to figure out what you need to do about the text personally. Even though I'm a dad and no longer a young guy trying to find my way, I still need to hang on to these 4 guiding principles. I need to commit to following Jesus. And even now, after more than 30 years of serving him, of following Jesus, knowing Jesus, I need to keep on learning how to live as a friend of Jesus and a follower of Jesus. I need to be intentional about connecting with the people around me and just being a good neighbor who flows well in my social context. I can summarize that by saying that I need to love God first and love others second. I need to stay intentional about my education, because the day I stop learning is the day I stop growing and I become irrelevant. I need to intentionally seek a healthy lifestyle that includes exercise and eating right. I'm kind of happy with my resistance training routine. I need to revisit my cardio routine, and I need to stop ignoring my eating guidelines or find something else that works better for me. Maybe a little too transparent there. I'm not doing so great on my diet, and I wish I was. And it's funny, I can't taste. I can't smell or taste. Nothing. I feel food. Like taste to me is crunchy or hard or dry or moist, damp, wet, whatever. And still, you'd think that I'd have this control over food, but food still affects me as well. Here's the summary. This verse is an awesome verse that in a very concise way provides a person with a trajectory for a better future. Jesus gave attention to the 4 parts within this verse, and I need to also. I need to keep growing in my relationship with God and with others. I need to continue to pursue education and stay fit. Now that I am a dad, I'm so thankful that this verse caught my attention in my teens while I was working at Circle Square Ranch. I'm thankful that I took this seriously because this verse helped get me here today. I should also say I'm very thankful to those men that were leading Circle Square Ranch back when I was a part of it. For me, that was a guy named Mark Wigston and another guy named Mike Friesen, and those were the 2 main guys there, the director, the assistant director, and the assistant director became the director after. Really appreciate those guys and teaching this to me, because it did me really well. Thanks, guys. For the young peeps wanting to know what to do to get to the next level, well, this is it. For the old peeps wanting to know how to finish well with dignity and how to finish with style, this is the verse that I'm still leaning into. It's done me well so far. I think it's going to do me well the rest of my life. Here's what I wrote down as a prayer. Now, you're going to obviously pray something very different than I am. At least I hope you will. This is what I wrote down. Jesus, thank you for your example. Please help me to continue to follow your example. Jesus, thank you for this relationship you've brought me into, and thank you for giving me this guidance as a teen to order my steps toward being the dad that I've become. Jesus, you rock. I haven't written a SharePoint, but I will, because this is going to become the Bible talk for this coming Sunday. If you are not yet connected to a community, please consider being a part of 4Community, where we create community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. See you next time, because that's all for now.